What's up, everybody? So today, we're going to go over a couple options for something coming down the line in The Mandalorian Season 3, but before I get into it, I want to give a spoiler warning as this will be building off a major event in Chapter 20, The Foundling, that came out last week. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 possibilities for where Kelleran Beq and Grogu could be going after their escape from Coruscant in Chapter 20. I'm going to give you these possibilities in order of least likely to most likely, in my opinion, so let's get into it. Coming in at the least likely option, Padme Amidala. Now I say this is the least likely because we see Coruscant is still in the dark during this scene, which means it's still relatively early on in the night when the Jedi Order fell. On top of that, the way George Lucas had Order 66 laid out is the clones got to the temple exits very quickly when they attacked, so I have a hard time believing this happened very deep into the attack on the temple. And one last logistical thing, if Grogu is as important as we believe, I think they would have had this plan in place to get him out of the temple if anything happened. We know Yoda had premonitions of the Order falling and the war to come, however, he chose not to believe them. But even the fact that he had them could mean that he set something up for the last surviving member of his species, other than himself that we know of, to be taken to safety if anything ever happened to the temple. And back to why Padme is the least likely, this is seemingly still at the time that she's just at her apartment watching the Jedi Temple burn from a distance. So I don't think she would have been in the position to set this sort of thing up, having little to no knowledge of what's actually going on there. Then, just a tad bit more likely than her because he's a master of deception, Palpatine. Now remember, this video is all based on the idea that this is before a lot of Order 66 has taken place, so Palpatine wouldn't even have given his speech to the Senate yet, or could be doing so simultaneously. And with that idea comes the reminder that Palpatine is from Naboo. Not only that, but his family was a royal family. We know this from the Darth Plagueis novel, which granted isn't canon, but regardless fits perfectly into the storyline of the Phantom Menace. So considering his family used to be a royal family amongst the Nubians, he could have access to the Nubian royal starship we see the two Jedi escape in. This would also mean that Grogu was in the Empire's control immediately after the Purge. I do think there's a decent chance of this, but it kind of does conflict what we know about the character so far, and it would really depend on how much more of his memory we see. If his memory is incredibly short post-Purge, then this option would probably jump up to number 2 for me. Sticking with Nubian royalty, Queen Apolana of Naboo could have arranged this. Now it relies on Kelleran actually being Nubian for this to make sense, however, I don't think that's super unlikely. It's definitely a possibility that Jon Favreau decided to write Ahmed's Jedi being from the same planet as his Gungan companion. I actually think it would be pretty hysterical if we get to see Kelleran Beq interact with Jar Jar. So in this theory, Kelleran is from Naboo as I said, and he would have contacted her when the temple was attacked, asking her to prepare a ship for him because the temple hangar was locked down. And remember, I said earlier that if Grogu is as important as we believe, there should have been a plan in place to get him out of danger, all things considered. So with Kelleran coming from a game show dealing with younglings, I wouldn't be surprised if they made that his canon task at the temple. Giving Ahmed a major role in the Jedi Order would be an absolute masterclass move by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, so if his job was to protect Grogu, I will be completely satisfied. This is also backed up because as the other Jedi were moving Grogu to the elevator, we hear one of them say, "Get the child to Kelleran." Now this might have just been their inner circle, but I really think this was a planned escape. I will say before we move on, this could cause a bit of a plot hole as to why the Queen didn't contact Padme about what was going on at the temple. However, that's something that can be explained or even avoided given further context. Alright, we're down to the last 2. I want to say before, these 2 are pretty equal in possibility, so don't focus too much on the order here, and with that being said, the next option is Jar Jar. As I said earlier, it would be amazing and hysterical if Ahmed Best was on screen as both Jar Jar and Kelleran at the same time in the series. However, we know from the novels that Jar Jar became a street performer popular with children. So what if they put a twist on this and make him someone who kept the younglings entertained while they were in hiding? That would of course mean that more Jedi other than Kelleran and Grogu made safe haven on Naboo, but I don't think that's too much of a stretch because remember, in the Kenobi series, we're introduced to the idea of the path, a network of Jedi working to take Force-sensitive children and keep them away from the Empire, and it would be pretty cool for Kelleran, Grogu, and even Jar Jar to be a part of the foundation of that movement. And finally, actually sticking with the idea of the path, Quinlan Vos, the Jedi we meet in the Clone Wars after he made a secret appearance in The Phantom Menace. But more importantly, Obi-Wan recognized his name on the wall of the path in his series. We then learn that Quinlan is incredibly important and that he did survive Order 66, which was something we weren't sure about because George had a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith where Quinlan dies on Kashyyyk. This possibility, like the last, would tie Grogu into the path and maybe even carry that idea further into the Mandoverse with the Skeleton Crew series coming later this year or early next year, as well as making Grogu all the more important. And with that comes the conclusion of this theory video. I hope you enjoyed these 5 different outcomes for Grogu and Kelleran Beq. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for daily news and more Mando Season 3 coverage and theories as we move along through the season. And while you're at it, leave your theories down in the comments below, and most of all, have a great day.